Today, I would like to talk to you about thought forms. So, to start out, it's important to discuss Gestalt. Gestalt is usually talked about in relation to design and design concepts. However, this word, which means form or shape, actually provides a lot of groundwork for thought forms. It can be further expanded to an organized whole perceived as greater than the sum of its parts. Several concepts make up Gestalt theory, depending on which listicle you are referencing. Similarity. Elements which are not right next to each other but are similar tie the group together. The refrain which ties verses together, for example. Continuation. The eye follows lines, whether that is a row of chairs, a fence, the horizon, power lines, or a mark on a page. Closure. This concept has to do with the way the eye uses negative space, and how the negative spaces between design elements can form shapes of their own. If a pile of clothes in the corner of your room has ever taken on additional personality, this can be the brain's reconciliation between the temporal and astral fields. Proximity. This has to do with how things are grouped, kerning, and can even be mental associations between things. We will cover this idea again when we talk about common region. Holding a crystal or talisman close to your body creates a protective connection through proximity. Crystal grids use proximity and can also utilize symmetry and order and common region. 5. Pick your ground. This is how our minds perceive perspective and the difference between the foreground and the background. This does not, however, touch on hierarchy of importance. That would be focal point. Pick your ground can be very important in reference to entities because distance in both time and space can be vastly distorted between the temporal and the astral. 6. Symmetry order. Similarity, continuation, and proximity all combine to give something symmetry and order. 7. Common region or common fate. Magical correspondences are an excellent example of common region. By linking all the correspondences together, the power of each element is amplified when combined as a whole. Focal point. Here is where we discuss hierarchy. In design, the largest or most prominent thing on the page should be the most important. When constructing a thought form, the focus should be on the goal of the working. That would be your focal point. I've used the word Gestalt in my videos a lot, many times, to describe that moment when a thought pops into your head and gains form. All these aspects of Gestalt theory can play their own role in the solidification of a thought form. Next, we're going to talk about different kinds of thought forms, starting with hallucination. 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 This thought form can be very real to the person affected by it, but is not palpable on any level to any other person. Hallucinations can be shared through art, writing, description, etc., but are only truly experienced by that one person. Once something becomes a shared hallucination, it slips into the territory of becoming an egregore. Alright, so next we're going to talk about egregores. This term refers to a collective thought form disseminated and fed by a group. Religions, memes, corporate iconography, even governments fall into this category. One element of the United States government that makes it an especially unpredictable egregore is that everyone's concept of what this nation represents tends to differ wildly. Memes evolve over time and their meaning can change completely from one iteration to the next. Completely. This type of thought form can start with a single creator, but definitely has no master. I definitely recommend reading this book. It's entitled Egregores, the Occult Entities That Watch Over Human Destiny. And it is written by a man named Mark Stavish. I'll put a link to this book in the description below. But it covers exhaustively not just egregores, but associated thought forms in a way that makes it very easy to understand how they can influence your life, which is very important to know if you're going to be involved in magic in any capacity. The next kind of thought form that we're going to discuss are servitors, and later in this video I am going to talk about some of the techniques that I have used and that you can use also to create your own servitors for magical purposes. This type of thought form is most commonly associated with chaos magic and is the personified spell work, which is to carry out your task. I will go into greater detail as to crafting a servitor later, but it is important to understand the creation of thought forms, both accidental and purposeful, to maximize your results. The next thought form I'm going to talk about are tulpas. Now, a tulpa is unique to Buddhism and is a method by which arhats, so an arhat is someone who has gained insight into the truth of existence and attained nirvana. This is a method by which these ascetics are able to navigate the heavenly world. The generation of this emanation body is achieved through intense meditation, and while the tulpa can remain an internal part of the arhat, it can also externalize as a tulku and incarnate in a new body. Alright, and then next I'm going to talk about golems. The word golem in Hebrew means dumb or helpless and describes an anthropomorphic entity formed out of inanimate material such as mud or clay and brought to life using magic. Anthropomorphic. as well. The idea that your family, friends, and peers have of you might be very close or very far from how you actually are. But all of them are only a thought form version of you. If you are performing magic on or against another person, you want their thought form version in your mind to be as close to their actual physical and astral states as possible. Possible. I'm going to talk about poppets and tag locks. Okay, a poppet is a method of sympathetic magic using a smaller representation of the target. This poppet becomes a physical embodiment of the thought form version of the target, and actions performed on that puppet are then enacted on the astral plane on the target, and then that translates into their physical form. To make a poppet stronger, you can include a tag lock. This also connects the practitioner to the target using hair, fingernail clippings, or anything else that has a close spiritual link to one of the parties involved. Tag locks can be used in two directions, okay? The practitioner can take a tag lock from a target and use it in spell work, or the practitioner can take a tag lock such as pubic hair or menstrual blood from themselves and mix it into something the target might consume, or put it in their path that they might have to walk over it. Tag locks are also used in witch bottles to take the energy the practitioner is shooting at someone and redirect it. This too becomes a representation of the thought form version of a person. Hopefully, this helps to elucidate the plucking of an idea out of the ether and pulling it down into the physical plane. You can use alchemy, the Kabbalah, or any other system with which you are familiar to describe the process, but possibly the best description that I have seen is Richard Dreyfuss's character's preoccupation with the Devil's Tower in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The extraterrestrials worked through him to manifest that form in mashed potatoes and eventually in the middle of his living room. How you choose to manifest thought forms is entirely up to you, and I will cover some techniques for creating servitors now. So, you can create a servitor using a sigil. These are usually very simple servitors. Simple servitors. It's a bit related to how sigils work overall, in that you write down your end goal and everything that works towards that. With a servitor, you can also put in other aspects of if X, then Y, to power the servitor for whatever extent of time you want the servitor to last. The servitor can take its energy from a variety of different sources, such as you, your target, another group of living beings, the sun, an egregore such as the government, etc. Now we're going to talk about thought form servitors. These servitors are conceived in much the same manner as an imaginary friend. You can give it personality traits and a physical form if you want, but basically, you're writing a backstory for your servitor as to its purpose and intention. Again, you will need to determine from whence its energy is derived, and you will also want to make sure that you either predetermine its lifespan or that or monitoring it for undesirable changes. Thought forms over time take on a life of their own and must be monitored. Concept servitors are like thought form servitors, but they are not anthropomorphized. And then there is a ritual servitor. This type of servitor was very effective for me. You basically come up with the end goal that you would like to have accomplished by the servitor and come up with a ritual in order to bring it to life. Again, this can have anthropomorphic features or not, depending on your taste. I made a Servitor, which is an experimental music film, to move away from Atlanta, where I had lived for most of my life. So this is a copy of the DVD that I made as my Servitor. You can see I put a little slide down there. It is a burned disc. It has stamps on it. And then it's in this clear DVD case. So when I made this, I did not have the end goal of coming to Los Angeles, but I did want to move to the place that would be best suited to me, so that was the intention of my Servitor. As I traveled, I took video in different places and cut them together using experimental effects and musical compositions, which I also made to create a DVD. I then toured on this DVD for 2 weeks up and down the East Coast to charge and cast the Servitor. When I returned home, I was asleep at my parents' house one afternoon and had a dream about moving to a place called West Hills in California. I had not ever heard of West Hills before, but that is where the laboratory is located, which hired me and relocated me to Los Angeles. The other part of the dream was that my parents were buying a house that I would be able to live in rent-free. The next day, they told me that they were planning to do that. They had some money that they wanted to invest in real estate, and so they were going to buy this property, and they said that it was okay for me to live there and not pay rent. That is how you will know that your spell work is effective. You will either get prophetic signs or have dreams about it. And another thing that I wanted to mention is that you can create servitors in conjunction with deities or other entities that are already in existence. Like, you don't have to take a thought form and then create a thought form from a thought form. You can work with deities if you're already doing so, and they will help you to create these thought forms. Alright, well, that's everything that I have to say about thought forms and servitors and creating them right now. If you would like to ask any questions, or if you want to talk about your own experience with servitor creation, or if you wanted to talk about thought forms, or if you feel like I left anything out and you want to know more, please let me know, or leave your experiences down in the comments. Sorry. Please leave that down in the comments, because I would love to hear more about what your experiences have been. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. If you think they could gain some help in their lives from creating a thought form or servitor, to help them out. I really appreciate appreciate you coming by, and I hope to see you again very,